about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So there was this picture of I guess there was a post on Twitter or X, which I'm now having a tough time now accessing, right? And I'll tell you what's happening later. But, and it's a woman who was, I can't give the source credit. And I don't think she wants it now because people are making fun of her. And you know, it's personal choice, but she's wearing a mask on a plane saying we're having a COVID hantavirus epidemic and nobody is masking up. And she took a picture of her masking up. Now, I don't want to, you know, shall we say, report and you know, appreciate the significance of what happened on that cruise ship and with the passengers evacuated, but we're by no means having a hantavirus epidemic, and we also are not in the midst of a huge, shall we say, wave of COVID either. Yes, there are COVID cases, but you know, she felt the need to kind of criticize everybody else on the plane, taking pictures of them for not wearing masks, and she chose to wear a mask. Personal choice. You want to wear a mask? That's fine. A lot of patients of mine want to wear masks. That's fine. Just don't rip on me for not wearing one. It's personal choice, especially if you have difficulty breathing on a plane, wearing a mask. I did. During COVID, when I had to wear a mask, I didn't have COVID. The partial pressure of oxygen drops. I had difficulty breathing with the mask on. People aren't lying. I was like, I've worn masks before, but I got to tell you, it was, I had to pretend to drink something just so I could open the mask to breathe. That was scary. One thing I wanted to then talk about is WCPO in Cincinnati asked for me to come on and talk about the differences between why this hantavirus outbreak isn't the same as COVID in terms of, how we need to precaution and what are the differences. And, I was glad he asked me to talk about that because I'm blown away at looking at what the media is doing just to get clickbait, just to get advertisers, just to get viewers, how they're trying to make it sound like hantavirus is the next outbreak. In fact, one Gen Z was telling me, because they listen a lot online and they don't seem to get as suspended and banned on social media as quickly as us Gen X's do. But he said that somebody had predicted that there was going to be another either COVID or virus or something coming within the next few months. And is this it? And I told him, no, I don't think it's it, because this was a very isolated outbreak, cluster of cases. We would not even call it epidemic proportions. Has the potential if the public officials do this wrong. But for the most part, I think it's going to be confined fairly well. But I told him I think there's going to be something else. There's always an October surprise when it comes to elections with the midterms. Do I think it's going to be another virus? No, I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories online. I think there's going to be something else that's going to be a big October surprise. There always is with elections. Not looking forward to that one, but I don't think it's this. So, the hantavirus, the reason why this is different is, with COVID, there were millions of cases before we in America were even alerted to it or were able to even identify it. I knew something was up when I was getting all these cases calling in a flu-like symptoms, but they were flu negative and they don't know what's wrong with them. And I'm like, well, we probably have a really bad pneumonia year, or we have a type of virus that's not getting picked up by a flu test. And I picked up on that November of 2019. So by the time we started talking about it and we started identifying it, or suspecting it in January of 2020, we already had millions. So with this hantavirus, we have 18 people being monitored in the States. I believe one tested positive. It's more isolated. The other difference between hantavirus, why hantavirus is not going to be the next COVID, is mostly hantavirus you get from rat droppings, exposure to rat droppings and saliva and excrement. And once you get it, it's very hard to transfer person to person. The Andes strain, which we believe the Dutch couple had, and then sadly might have exposed a German national on that MV Hondias cruise ship. That was a strain that apparently will allow somebody who gets hantavirus to spread it person to person. We do believe they still got it from rat droppings, but then when they had it, they sadly, allegedly exposed somebody by person to person somehow, and then a German national got it and died. With that though, still, that's very close contact. As opposed to COVID, you could be across a room, and I mean, COVID was a lot more transmissible. So again, very different. I don't really see hantavirus doing that. Also, we're a little bit more prepared. When COVID hit, we were in the dead of cough, cold, and flu season. Hospitals were already overwhelmed, overrun. And so now you have people with COVID and nobody knew what to do with them. And unfortunately, Andrew Cuomo sent them patients back to their nursing homes, and that was a cluster in a seventh. Now we have a little bit more. We're coming into the summer. We're not in flu season and pneumonia season. And so from a respiratory standpoint, we should have more resources available as, in terms of if somebody did, let's say, go into respiratory distress, we have more ICU beds open. We have more respirators available. We aren't in an oxygen shortage like we were when COVID hit. So, I mean, a lot of differences. And I was really, really glad News 9 Cincinnati allowed me to talk about that. However, those individuals who are isolating or quarantining, or isolate is when you have it. Quarantine is when you're questioning if you have it. So that's how I remember the two. So we have one who I think tested positive that's in isolation, but other individuals are quarantining and watching for symptoms over the next few weeks, because the incubation period could be up to 8 weeks. Cough, fever, chills, body pain, things like that. So no, big differences. But with COVID, we're learning more and more and more by the day about some of the deception and fraud. So don't go away. We'll be right back to talk about that next. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
And we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. Shout out to our amazing producer, Daniel, and thank you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on, I would say follow us on Twitter, but I'll tell you what happened with that later. Facebook and YouTube. Definitely check out, click like and subscribe. And we are still nationally syndicated. Thank God for Talk Media Network. But the AI bots are really starting to take over, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I want to first hit this story where we have a CIA whistleblower testifying before the Senate Homeland Security Committee about COVID origins. And this was pretty enlightening. And what he said wasn't necessarily, I think, what he was supposed to testify on wasn't to me a shock, because we were saying this for years on the show, but it reinforced the corruption we had. And for those individuals who were like me going, come on, guys, what's going on here? I mean, this should not be politicized. We think it's a leak. COVID came from a lab leak. A lab, and why is Fauci flip-flopping, which is why they called him flip-flop Fauci? Well, politics. And I find that very, very frustrating. And so we have a whistleblower who has been, I guess, rehired by the CIA, although the CIA did not seem happy that he was testifying today. We're going to be getting more news as it breaks, because this is just now evolving. But Senator Rand Paul held the Senate Homeland Security Committee meeting with Senator Ron Johnson, and they subpoenaed Special Operations Officer James Erdman III. He was issued a subpoena on May 5th. He previously testified in a classified setting before the committee, but this one was made public. And Senator and Dr. Rand Paul said he's a decorated officer with decades of intelligence and national security experience. He said before joining the CIA in 2013, he served with the 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, and as a Foreign Service officer at the Department of State. He recently completed a joint duty assignment with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Director Initiatives Group. And he holds a Bachelor of Science in Biology with a minor in Chemistry from Western Oregon University, has received the Director of National Intelligence Award, and CIA Intelligence Medal of Merit. So what they were discussing, and I got little bits of it before I went on my show, was how, from what and he was being very, very careful when he said this, but what the whistleblower had said is it seemed to him that individuals within the NIH were trying to protect China's interests, which, no shock to us, that China's been very well infiltrated into our government, our politics. Look at the mayor that they were, feeding information to and having her post on a site to give to Chinese Americans. Not shocking, but because we suspected it. But to the average American, really, isn't the American of when is America first? Why would we want to be so careful to not tick off China? Why would we be so reluctant to just say the truth? And so the cover up on the origins, I know some people are like, Dr. Dahlia, it's old news. It's 6 years ago. It's no. This is very pertinent and very relevant for today. Because China, as I said, this wasn't their first rodeo. They were deemed by the Singapore Health Ministry's review to have leaked the first SARS back in 2002 when we had the first SARS outbreak. Then in 2004, they had another lab leak. So with this one, in 2019, which I believe happened in roughly August, in the summer of 2019, because by the time it got to America, October, November, that would pretty much, from an epidemic or pandemic standpoint, follow the timeline. To me, it wasn't China's first rodeo. But in America, we were all like, no, under the Biden administration, no, it can't be that. I mean, Trump called it. He called it the China virus. I was like, oh, no, you can't say that. That's xenophobic. You're being mean. You're being rude. But if it came from China, And they messed up. And now I understand people did not want Trump to imply that they tinkered with it, that they manipulated it, that they purposely let it go, to affect the upcoming election. I mean, Senator Rand Paul does feel that this was accidental. For me, I'm on the side of it being accidental, but nothing's going to surprise me. And not because I'm a conspiracy theorist, but because there's such a push. And I'm not saying China would do this, but I am blown away at the extinctionism movement, where there is such a push for there to be fewer people. If you ever see that postcards, is it postcards from the Sphere movie that was made for the Sphere? It basically is anti-population. And it talks about how the world would be a better place if, the population dies and we start anew. And when I told my son about it, he's like, oh yeah, that's the extinctionism movement. It's crazy. And I'm like, this is something that people want, which is why I'm very concerned about AI when we pose AI questions on pollution or quote unquote climate change or world hunger and poverty. Their answer is going to be fewer people. And so whether this was something being tested for that or whether it was just accidental, I don't know. But it makes sense that it was a lab leak just because China, it's not their first rodeo and not their first lab leak. And why that's so important is whatever process or protocol, and I said this back in 2020, whatever protocol that lab in the Wuhan Institute of Virology was doing is most likely replicated in other labs. Many labs copy the same protocols. And if that protocol is faulty, we better go to all the other labs and tell them to get their act together and show them where the vulnerabilities could be. Which is another reason why people think this might have been leaked on purpose, because they think, why didn't other labs have also similar, spills, or I don't know. The thing is I really don't want to believe that China would want to hurt their own people. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, regime is notorious for that. I just don't want to necessarily say that China would want to kill a lot of their population with a virus. I would not, without evidence, I would not want to go there at all. Because it's sad. It's horrifying to think that that's something a government would do. But it's something that we've seen other governments do. And so we can't be naive to that. And so what this whistleblower, it was conveying was that, there's a process. There was a process within, our government at the time that felt the truth was going to hurt Chinese interests and might not be in the interest of what America wanted to do at the time under the Biden administration. And for him to come out was very, very, very telling. And Senator Rand Paul and Ron Johnson said they were going to do their best to protect him. Interestingly, there were no Democrats that showed up. The Senate Homeland Security meeting, which is comprised of Republicans and Democrats, the Democrats did not want to show up. I guess somebody came in to sign attendance and then just walked out. Why wouldn't they want to know? If you're really all about, protecting America and infectious disease and climate change and all that, wouldn't you want to listen to every bit of evidence? Because people say COVID happened because of climate change. Well, then why wouldn't you want to, I find that very odd. It's interesting. And people can say, yeah, Dr. Donnie, but the Democrats don't want to hear something, that might not be evidence to what they believe. As a physician, we don't get to pick and choose what we listen to. We can't say, I don't like that evidence. I don't like the result of your study, so I don't want to listen to it. No, we're not allowed to do that. If we don't like your methodology, if we think there was secondary gain by a company sponsoring, yeah, we have a right to throw out, a study. But if we don't like the outcome of the study or the review, you need to take that information and go with it. If you're a physician who had said, look, we need to give everybody medical marijuana for this condition. And then you find out that actually, no, it could be causing harm. You're supposed to? No, Tylenol. We were given Tylenol in droves. Say, take as much Tylenol as you want. As a pregnant, I remember hearing an OB say, you could take as much Tylenol as you want. And then finally, I'm kind of seeing in the late 90s, wait a second, Tylenol could have some effects on the fetus. That might not have been what I wanted to hear, but I was like, okay, I guess, we got to, change our tune a little bit. So as we get more information from this hearing, we'll definitely share it with you. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
You're listening to the Dr. Dahlia Show.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Oh, yeah. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I'm loving it. I am loving it, bringing up the energy. What I'm not loving is 186,000 dead people were found to be getting SNAP benefits. 186,000 just to start in the fraud investigation. As of May 2026, the Trump administration has reported that the Federal Anti-Fraud Task Force has already identified almost 200,000 people who have been dead that are still active recipients of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as food stamps. And they found nearly 400,000 individuals were double dipping, getting benefits in more than one state simultaneously. So, I understand that many of these individuals that are alive have been caught, removed from the SNAP program. And the task force has found that some of these individuals who were getting food stamps owned luxury vehicles, including Lamborghinis. This is frustrating. Very, very frustrating. There's another program that is government funded called the Lifeline program, which subsidizes mobile phone service. 94,000 dead people were included in that, according to the FCC's Inspector General. Now, I understand that if somebody dies, it's very difficult for them to contact the government saying, hey, I'm no longer here. Stop giving benefits. But the government will figure that out, will know that if the funds aren't being used, which means somebody else might be using those funds. As far as I'm concerned, that's jail time. You're stealing. And you're stealing from individuals who need the money. I keep hearing we don't have enough money to feed our poor. We don't have enough money for Medicare. We don't have enough money for Social Security. Well, then we need to crack down on the fraud. Yeah, I told you I loved the WIC program where you just got the food, where you'd go into the grocery store and the milk, the meat, the fish, the grains were labeled WIC. And if you had a WIC ID card, you would take the celery stalk, the fish, the milk, the eggs, go up to the cashier, show them your WIC, it would get documented somehow, and then you got to take that home. But instead, things change to you get a debit card and you swipe. And I'm looking at some of these individuals that have, that have, Cocoa Puffs, soda pop, things. And how is that supplemental nutrition? Now, states are cracking down on it. And, Trump has been very vocal about how there needs to be responsibility. There needs to be accountability. And individuals getting it need to, there should be work requirements, either if you are healthy and not disabled, and not, same thing with Medicaid, and you don't have children, and you're healthy, and you are robust, and you are strong, and, you need to have at least 20 hours a week of either a job, schooling, or volunteer work. I think it's brilliant. Because in medicine, we learn that if anybody has, let's say, a workers' comp injury, immediately get them back to work, even if it's modified duty, sit-down duty, because the longer they're away from work, the harder it is to get them back to work. So then you hear doctors go, "Oh, I can't believe they're making people work." Well, why? You can't believe they're making healthy people work? We have to do, if somebody has a workers' comp injury, if somebody has, a sprain, a broken bone, we're sending them back to work if they can. That's kind of what we do. Sit down duty, modified duty, so that one, they could still earn if they want to, and two, so they're still in the rhythm of work. Of course, if they have to have surgery, no. But that's what we were taught with workers' comp injuries. Get them back on the job site. If it's minor, if it's not. And we're talking about healthy people. These food stamp overpayments, this is frustrating. The U.S. Government Accountability Office, published, has been, looking at this and has been reporting on this for years. But it had to take J.D. Vance, and I love that Trump made J.D. Vance do this, as J.D. Vance is going to be the front runner. I think Marco Rubio would also be excellent. I would love to see a President Rubio. I really would. I think he would be fantastic. But with J.D. Vance being the front runner, people are like, well, we understand this is Trump is doing Trump. What's Vance a part of? So seeing that Vance is on top of that, and within seconds said, "This is what we found, guys." It's good. This fraud task force is necessary, and it kind of takes on what where Doge left off. Which, again, the Department of Government Efficiency, I think, should exist, and I don't see future administrations that are not aligned with Trump doing it because they like the inefficiency. And then unfortunately, there's a lot of inefficiency. Let me just, with Doge, I know a lot of people who are government workers. With Doge, it was, it didn't roll out as smoothly as it should. And my issues with Doge is, you told people to come back to work, and if they didn't want to come back to work remotely, they could give up their job and get a severance, which I thought was appropriate. Now, we're paying for you to show up on the job. We aren't paying for you to stay home and watch Netflix. So I agreed with that. But then you, after that, started firing people who said, "I'm here to work. I'm coming back to work. I'm on site. I'm with you." They ended up turning around, getting fired, and not getting a severance. That was not cool. Not cool. And then everything got fired or held and froze. And so a lot of work that had to be done with the government didn't necessarily get done. And that was, so I understand the pendulum swing the other way. And we're actually going to be seeing this with Medicare, where we're seeing that the Trump administration is freezing new Medicare enrollments for hospice and home health agencies to ensure they're kosher, to ensure they're legit. And I know people are upset about this 6-month freeze. It's going to be a nationwide 6-month freeze on any new Medicare enrollments. And I know people are concerned about that because we have a growing population, a swelling population of older individuals. But the problem is there's so much fraud that sometimes the only way to figure out what the hell is going on is to just stop and take a look, investigate, and then come up with protocols and come up with requirements and checklists to ensure that any new agency is not going to defraud the government. The problem is some of these individuals that are trying to apply for new benefits are new fraudulent companies. And so to say we're stopping it here, and we understand there's some innocent companies that want to now make their mark, and we do want to spur growth and incentivize growth, but until we understand the depth and the degree of the fraud, we have to put a clamp on it. And according to Dr. Mohammed Oz, they said that we've seen systemic and deeply troubling fraud in the hospice and home health space, with bad actors exploiting some of our most vulnerable Medicare patients and stealing money from the American taxpayer. Today, we're shutting the door on fraud, preventing new bad actors from entering Medicare while we aggressively identify, investigate, and remove those already exploiting them. This work is going to take years. And I am so glad they are on top of it. I'm impressed. This is find the fraud, root it out. The problem is fraud is like cancer. It knows how to hide, it knows how to come out in future administrations. That's what we're looking at right now with the COVID cover-up. In fact, when the senators were talking to the whistleblower about the COVID origins cover-up, they said, the concern we have is, Americans want to know that there is a process in place that protects us, and looks like that process existed, but people didn't follow it. And that's fraudulent. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
And we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we have some breaking news. Alex Murdaugh's murder convictions have been thrown out in a very interesting turn of events. So we are being told that the prominent former South Carolina attorney who was found guilty of murdering his son Paul and wife Maggie, his convictions have been thrown out. And this is what we're being told. All right. This is multiple news outlets are reporting this, but I want to make sure that I'm getting this worded correctly. They say there was a 5-0 ruling where the justices, this was the South Carolina Supreme Court, unanimously issued a scathing reprimand of the court clerk, Becky Hill, Now, he said the 5 justices decided to overturn Murdaugh's conviction for the June 2021 slayings after the quote-unquote trial of the century was marred by jury tampering at the hands of the county clerk, Becky Hill. They said she egregiously attacked Murdaugh's credibility throughout his March 2023 trial as she tried to influence the jury to return a guilty verdict because she was writing a book about the case. Quote, although we are aware of the time, money, and effort expended for this lengthy trial, we have no choice but to reverse the denial of Murdaugh's motion for a new trial due to Hill's improper external influences on the jury and remand for a new trial. Here, Hill, the Colleton County Clerk of Court, egregiously attacked Murdaugh's credibility in his defense, thus triggering the presumption of prejudice, which the state was unable to rebut. They said, as noted at the outset, Hill's shocking jury interference was accomplished outside the presence and knowledge of the outstanding trial judge and superbly competent and professional counsel for the state and the defense. We are accordingly constrained to reverse the post-trial court's denial of Murdaugh's motion and remand for a new trial consistent with this adoption. He will not walk free from prison. He is still serving separate 40 and 27-year sentences. He was convicted in 2023 of the June 7th, 2021 slayings of his wife, Maggie, 52 years old, and Paul, 22. This was a very high-profile case. It's still just shocking as to, what happened and why. But even more shocking that here now, more money has to be spent to retry him because they found that there was jury tampering. The mother and son were allegedly shot dead at the dog kennels. They had a 17,000-acre Mazzella estate in Islandton, South Carolina. Allegedly, the killer used 2 guns, both of which were never found. Murdaugh apparently called 911, claiming to have returned home to find their bodies there. But he was charged with causing, there was a previous, issue where in 2019 he was charged with causing a boat crash that resulted in the death of his friend. I apologize. We're seeing this was the son. I didn't really follow this particular trial. I think after the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, I was kind of trialed out for a while. But what's concerning about this is what we're seeing, like with the Charlie Kirk murder trial. The judge has to be so careful in that every single procedure is done, correctly, because Tyler Robinson, the accused, can very easily walk if they don't, if they don't do everything by the book and correctly. Now, what the Tyler Robinson, the Charlie Kirk murder, the accused, Tyler Robinson, their side is trying to say that any jury is going to be biased. And, when the jury issue, we're very, very lucky to have a jury and a trial by our peers. But unfortunately, we keep hearing that, it's not necessarily our peers. Like when a doctor has a malpractice case, most of the time they settle because rarely is a jury made up of doctors could kind of understand what might be going on. Same thing with, like we saw with Stephon Diggs. Luckily, the jury ruled in favor of Stephon Diggs, but NFL player, how many people on the jury are NFL players who, have employees who are upset about being let go and then accused of assault? And so, we do the best we can to try to find a jury of our peers, but the defense wants to make sure that jury is going to lean their way, and the prosecution wants to make sure the jury is going to lean their way. In terms of the Tyler Robinson case, cameras are going to be allowed. Utah Judge Tony Graff also granted a request to delay the preliminary hearing, originally scheduled to begin later this month, because his lawyers argued they needed more time to examine DNA analysis of some of the evidence. The camera ruling was very important because if there were then accusations, which I think people are expecting the defense to, do every trick they can, that at least with the cameras, there's more transparency. So if somebody claims, look, so usually the cameras can actually help prosecutions, because if somebody says this happened during the case, and there's at least some transparency with it. With the delays, the defense has repeatedly tried to delay the preliminary hearing. And it's in the defense's best interest to delay as the story becomes less emotional as time passes. As far as I'm concerned, if I was on the jury, I would give fair, I would listen to testimony. I would want to make sure nothing was molested in terms of the process, and to ensure that nothing got contaminated in terms of any bias. And I would, I don't know Tyler Robinson from, somebody across the street, but I would listen to the evidence. I would look at the evidence, seeing Charlie Kirk murdered, watching that, horrific. But I think I, as a jury member, could be very objective, because as a physician, you know what, goes into this, and you understand, how important it is to, for somebody to be innocent until proven guilty. However, for those individuals who saw what happened and they are hearing the mounting evidence about the guns and the texts, how do you ensure there is no bias? With the Trump cases, they tried to claim that the jury that was used in these New York cases against Trump and loan documents and I guess the case of the woman who said she groped him in a dressing room. They asked them, do you read New York Post or New York Times? Do you watch CNN or Fox News? That's okay. So if somebody wants to get on the jury, they're going to say, oh, yeah, I watch this. Oh, yeah. No, I'm going to be very, very fair. Yeah, right. In fact, a federal appeals court ruled this week that President Donald Trump does not need to pay an $83 million defamation award to E. Jean Carroll until the Supreme Court reviews the case or decides to pass on it. The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New York issued the order Monday after Trump asked it to pause its earlier ruling, denying him a chance to challenge the defamation award before the full appeals court. According to NBC News, they say the court granted Trump's request to pause the ruling, citing no objection from Carroll, so long as Trump agreed to raise the bond by $7.46 million to account for interest that would accrue on her award during further legal proceedings that are expected to extend to the Supreme Court. I wonder if you get that bond back if the Supreme Court rules that this was the case was not done correctly. Carroll's legal team and representatives for Trump did not immediately respond to NBC's request. Trump's attorneys are seeking to invoke a federal statute to swap him out as a defendant and have the U.S. government take his place. If it's successful, the move would essentially nullify Carroll's case, since the federal government cannot be sued for defamation. The appeals court last month rejected a request on a hearing of that government. Now, a jury sided with Carroll in 2024 say Trump defamed her when he repeatedly denied that he sexually abused her in a dressing room in the 90s. So that's interesting, because you're allowed to say I didn't do it. You're allowed to claim your innocence. But they're claiming that the way he might have said why he's innocent defamed her. So we'll keep you posted on that story as that develops. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.